Hello, my name is Santiago Jarrin, and I'm going to talk about the cultural dimension communication in high versus low context culture and the need to develop intercultural competence. Cultural dimension. The cultural dimension are foundation aspects of a society cultural that profoundly influence behavior, norms, and values. Gerd Audel's culture dimensions framework highlights five key dimensions: power distance, individualism versus collectivism, and certainly a lens long term versus short term orientation, and masculinity versus femininity. These dimensions provide insight into how different cultures approach authority, social relationships, risks, time orientations, and gender roles. Communication in high versus low context culture. In high context cultures such as those found in many Asian and Middle Eastern society, communication relies heavily on implicit cues, on verbal gestures, and shared cultural understanding. These cultures prioritize harmony, group cohesion, and indirect communication. On the other hand, low context culture, often prevalent in Western societies, emphasizes explicit communication where messages are conveyed indirectly and unambiguously. Individuals in low context cultures prioritize individual autonomy, clarity, and assertiveness in communication need to develop intercultural competence. In today's interconnected world where globalization and multiculturalism is prevalent, developing intercultural competence is crucial for effective communication and collaboration across culture. Intercultural competence refers to an ability to understand, appreciate, and adapt to cultural differences during interactions with individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds. It involves not only linguistic proficiency but also empathy, respect, flexibility, and culture sensitive. By developing intercultural competences, individualism can navigate cultural nuances, avoid misunderstanding, and fostering meaningful connection in diverse cultural contexts. Definition of five cultural dimensions and intercultural competence. Cultural dimensions 1. Power distance. The definition of power distance reflects the extent of which less powerful members of a society accept and expect that power is distributed unequally. It is the case how much hierarchy and unequal power distributes are tolerated. The high power distance is the societies with high power distance accept that hierarchically order in which everybody has a place without needing further justification. This cultural respects authority and values obedience. The low power distances in these societies people strive for equal distribution of power and question authority. Subordinates are more likely to change and express their opinions. Individualism versus collectivism. The definition is that this dimension will explore the degree to which individuals are integrated into groups and the balance between individual autonomy and group solidarity within a society. The individualistic societies emphasizes personal achievements and individual rights. People are expected to look after themselves and their immediate families. And in the collectivism culture, individuals are integrated into group. Cohesion groups often extend families which protect them in exchange for loyalty. The group of harmony and collective well-being are paramount. Uncertainty avoidance. The definition of uncertainty avoidance measures a society's tolerance for ambiguity, uncertainty, and then risk influence its approach to rules, regulations, and conformity. The high uncertainty avoidance is cultures have strict rules and regulations to minimize uncertainty and ambiguity. They prefer the structured environment and clear expectations. In the long uncertainty avoidances, the society with low uncertainty avoidances are more accepting and ambiguity and are more relaxed about rules and regulations. They are more adaptable to change and innovations. Long-term versus short-term orientation. Definitions in these dimensions consider a culture orientation through future planning, tradition, and persistence versus immediate gratification and adaptability. The long-term orientation culture with a long-term orientation focus on future rewards, persistence, and third, the value long-term commits and respect for tradition. The short-term orientation. This culture value the past and present, emphasizing respect for traditionality, fulfilling succession obligation, and achieving quick results. Intercultural competence. The definition called intercultural competence encompasses a range of abilities and attributes essential for effective cross-cultural communication and interaction. It involves understanding one's own culture framework as well as that of others, that the ability to adapt communication styles accordingly. The keys of the components are the linguistic proficiency, the mastery of a language skills to facilitate communication, understanding and using the target language accurately and appropriately. 2. The cultural empathy, the ability to understand and appreciate cultural differences from others. Perspective recognizing of the emotional cognitive dimension of another culture. Number 3. Culture sensitivity, awareness of culture, norms, values, and practices and their impact, communication, and behavior. Understanding the subtlety of nouns and influence interaction. Adaptability, the adaptability of flexibility to adjust to one's communication styles, behavior, and attitudes in diverse cultural contexts. Being open, modifying one's approach based on cultural context. Number 5, respect and openness, willingness to engage with the cultural differences with respect, curiosity, and an open mind, valuing diversity and seeking to learn different cultural perspectives. Conflict resolution skills, the capacity to navigate cultural misunderstanding and conflicts constructively and collaboratively, developing strategies to manage and resolve conflicts that arise from cultural differences. Differences in communication in high and low context culture. In high context culture, the definition of communication relies on implicit clues, shared cultural understanding, and nonverbal gestures. The characteristics are implicit in communication, emphasizes on group harmony, significant roles, nonverbal cues. For example, in Japan's culture, the silence during a conversation can signify an agreement and understanding. Low context cultures. The definition of the communication is explicit, direct, and relies primarily on verbal expression. The characteristic is emphasizes on individual expression, relies on non-verbal communication. As example, I could say that in American culture, a simple yes or no is expected on convey agreement or disagreement, reasons of miscommunication during cross-cultural encounters. The different communication styles are varied interpretation due to reliance of different communication styles. Example, a Japanese employee's silence might be a disagreement by an American colleague. The cultural norms and values influence of cultural norms of communication patterns. As example, I could say that the expectations are regarding hierarchy can lead to misunderstanding between manager and employers. Nonverbal cues and context. Differences in interpretation or nonverbal cues. The example, a firm handshake may be viewed differently across cultures. And the language barrier, difficulty understanding due to language differences. This example is the misinterpretation of colloquial expression by non-native speakers. The cultural stereotypes and assumptions is the influence of the stereotypes of perception. As an example, I can say that stereotyping can lead to oversimplification of the cultural differences. Ethnocentrism. Bias toward one's own culture. Example, views one's own cultural norms as superior can hide your understanding of other cultures. Links between cultural dimension, cross-cultural communication, and intercultural competence in the EFL students. The cultural dimension, as understanding cultural dimensions, provides in the EFL students with insight into the underlying values of norms of different societies, informing their approach of communication. Cross-cultural communication, awareness of cultural dimension allows EFL students to adapt their communication strategies, recognize cultural nuances, and bridge cultural gaps during interactions with the speakers of other cultures. Intercultural competence. Developing intercultural competence equips the EFL students with the ability to navigate cultural differences, foster empathy, and build rapport across diverse cultural contexts, facilitating this modern cross-cultural communication and reducing the likelihood in communication. The importance of the EFL students is enhanced communication skills, providing in cultural dimension and intercultural competence enables the EFL students to communicate effectively with individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds, fostering meaningful exchange and mutual understanding. The cultural sensitivity is the knowledge of the cultural dimension and intercultural competence cultivates cultural sensitivity among EFL students, promoting respect for cultural diversity and facilitating inclusive communication practices. Global citizenship, equipment with cross-cultural communication skills and intercultural competence. EFL students are better prepared to navigate the complexities of interconnected world, contributing to global citizenship and fostering positive intercultural relationships. Again, my name is Santiago Jarrin, and thank you so much. This was my presentation for this week.